Hi, I'm Karen, and this is the Mental Health Hope You're Not Alone podcast. This space is all about breaking the stigma of mental health, where we'll share personal stories, helpful online resources, and meaningful insights, all with one goal in mind, to remind you that you are not alone in your mental health journey. Happy 4th of July weekend, hopefuls. I hope you're having a wonderful time with your friends and family as we celebrate the 250th birthday of this nation. I am actually not doing anything because I just choose not to. Where I'm at, it's really hot. Plus, I just really don't like the 4th of July or really fireworks either. Welcome to the Mental Health Hope You're Not Alone podcast. I'm your host, Karen. And today we're going to be talking about how to live with anxiety and depression and ways that can help improve your life. The idea where this came from is I've been doing Pilates over 2.5 months now. I have been doing Pilates in the morning, and I started out doing 2 times a week. And then I bumped it up to 3 times a week. And starting next week, I'll be doing 4 times a week. So I'm really excited about that because not only is it helping with my body, because I've actually gone down a size, which is fantastic, but it's also helping with my mental health, way more than I ever thought would happen. I was mainly wanting to try something new, trying to find a way to get back into healthy physically, and did not realize how Pilates was going to help me with my mental health issues. I'd like to talk about that today on what you all can do to help your anxiety and depression. There are several different things we're going to discuss because it's not one thing for everybody. Everybody's got to find something that they enjoy doing, and so we're going to talk about that. So let's initially start talking about just anxiety in general. We all know what that is. We've gone over it several times throughout this podcast. Same with depression. And so we're going to be talking about both anxiety and depression throughout this episode. So I want to initially just touch on understanding triggers. And I think sometimes it's easy to not really understand what our triggers are, and maybe it's an abusive background, or maybe you were brought up in a really toxic home environment, or maybe, like in my case, I had somebody at work that targeted me and was really trying to make my life miserable by doing various things, and so that's what led to my anxiety and ultimately the depression. And since then I've been diagnosed with agoraphobia, and also too I've been diagnosed with PTSD. So, and catch our PTSD episode, we did one a couple episodes back. So anyway, so this article I'm going to talk about here is from the National Alliance on Mental Health. And it talks about understanding your triggers and trying to, or maybe identify your triggers and understanding them. So then it can help you with knowing what your triggers are and maybe trying to steer away from that to help with your anxiety. And the first thing about it says a trigger, sometimes referred to as a stressor, is an action or situation that can lead to an adverse emotional reaction. In context of mental illness, referring to triggers usually means something that has brought or worsened the symptoms. In the ongoing dialogue about mental health, we don't talk enough about triggers. More often, the discussion focuses on what happens after a person has been triggered, which is when the situation is much harder to address. Understanding, identifying, and working to prevent triggers can be more empowering and effective. And that's actually something that my counselor and I were just talking about. Not necessarily the trigger itself, but trying to find ways to become empowered. And specifically, and I think we've even talked about this in an episode, but I'm not 100% sure, but specifically we were talking about this person that was or is that I felt was targeting me, and trying to understand their side, that what happened in this person's life that made them be to the point where they felt that they had to go after somebody in a work environment to the point where that person, which is myself, ended up with severe anxiety and depression and so on. And so she was saying basically maybe find empathy for that person, because it's hard to understand where they came from, but at the same time, like for myself, I can't understand treating somebody that way. I would never go after somebody for any reason whatsoever. And so it's hard for me to think how that person would feel that it's okay to do that. But at the same time, showing empathy to that person, so it gives me back my power to think this person must have had a rough childhood or something happened in their life to the point where they're now targeting people in a work environment by bullying, really, if you want to call it that. And so it's really hard to find the empathy for somebody who does that, but I'm trying. And so that's the part of this is if I do and can think about it from their side, it does, for me, feel more empowering. So this article goes on to say, understanding triggers. Triggers are individualized experiences that vary widely from person to person. So for example, a trigger may elicit a physical reaction, such as heavy breathing or sweating. A trigger can also spur an emotional reaction like thinking, I am being attacked, blamed, controlled, disrespected, hurt, and judged. After experiencing a trigger, a person may feel overwhelmed, powerless, scared, unloved, and weak, among other things. These feelings can be very difficult to address and quite detrimental to mental health. And I can tell you that's exactly how I feel, that I was being triggered by this person. I felt that I was being triggered by this person. I don't know if that's what they were doing, but it certainly felt that way. And this one particular person was working in cahoots, if you will, with a couple of other people that made my life really difficult for about 4 or 5 years. And now because of that, I suffer from PTSD. So when I have interactions with somebody who may mimic that behavior, then that's one of my triggers. And it does make me feel very helpless because I feel like I can't stand up for myself. And it just does feel very overwhelming and disrespecting. The thing that we were talking about with respect to my counselor was understanding and triggered and finding a way to overcome that. And one of the ways was empathy. And we'll go on and talk a little bit more about others, but overall, it seems like things are, like I'm still dealing with the anxiety and so forth, but I feel like things are at a level that is more comfortable. And there's reasons for that, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. So this article goes on to say, talks about types of triggers, that there are many different stimuli that can be possible triggers, and they are often strongly influenced by past experiences. I have experienced numerous triggers when I've been symptomatic. These triggers have led to extreme discomfort, family conflict, onset illness, and worsening symptoms of episodes and hospitalizations. And so I'll just want to say that this was written by somebody that she works for the founder of For Minds Mental Illness Peer Support Community, and so she wrote this article for the National Alliance of Mental Illness. So anyway, so let's go on to talk about what the triggers are. So there's external triggers, and those are triggered by basically something that's outside of your control. So in this case, this person was talking about something that occurred in 2006 that was causing her a lot of anxiety, And so it's really something outside of us that is causing that trigger. I'll just give you an example. So let's say recently there's been a lot of talk about the war that, or whatever you want to call it, that was started, and maybe somebody is triggered by that war and it causes severe anxiety for them. So anyway, internal triggers is triggers of your feelings from within. So for me, that would be that feeling of being powerless and feeling like I'm getting targeted. And then next one is trauma triggers, which that too can also explain what I've been going through, because I've certainly been traumatized by what happened, and that is certainly something that has occurred. And that can also be from somebody who probably hasn't grown up in the best environment, or maybe they're in a relationship with somebody and that person has caused them trauma, and so on and so forth. But for me, it was this person and feeling like I was being targeted that was certainly traumatic for me, because it basically ruined my career. I'll say that. What happened ruined my career. And so that's very traumatizing, and it still is. I'm still trying to crawl out of that space. Okay, and the next one here is symptom triggers. Lack of a reduced need for sleep has occasionally triggered symptoms for bipolar, and that's specific to this person who wrote the article. And so yeah, for me, I guess it would be, for symptoms, is the anxiety continues to get worse and worse. And that's where the agoraphobia came in, because the worse my anxiety got, the less I wanted to go out and do things. So it was a trigger of my symptoms. And so it's talking about ways to cope. So learn to identify what your triggers are, who or what was involved, where and when and why it took place. Observe patterns and obvious signs of risk to prevent a similar situation. And I would agree. I have somebody at my current work who mimics the behavior of the past two people that have targeted me. She mimics that behavior in a way that is all too familiar. And so I just avoid her as much as I can, because I just don't want or need to feel like I'm helpless, and I don't want to trigger my anxiety any worse than it already is. The next thing here says create a plan to address triggers and emotional reactions. You may want to talk to loved ones or your treatment team to let them know how they best can help you when you are triggered. Be sure to carefully address triggers that occur repeatedly, because each time they do, the emotional reaction may be greater, which is true. We just said that. Try problem-focused coping, so confront your stressor directly and try to find a solution to the stressor. And actually, that's one of the things that my counselor and I have been working on. Is she really likes exposure therapy, and I absolutely hate it. But it's been proven to me that it works. So I'll give you an example that prior to starting my Pilates classes, matter of fact, I was supposed to start on the 1st of April, which I kind of wish now I would have, but I just wasn't mentally there yet. And I also think I was sick, so I was kind of getting over sickness anyways. What ended up happening is that I had my first appointment with them was supposed to be on April 1st, and what I ended up doing was rescheduling for 2 weeks later. And so I did, and I ended up starting, I think, around, I don't remember if it was like the 15th or something, and I went in, and I've made great progress since then, not only with what I've been doing in Pilates, but also now that back in April, my anxiety was extremely high about getting out of the house and doing things that were new and everything. But now here I am 2.5 months later, and my anxiety of getting out of the house to go to Pilates is, I won't say it's zero, because it's not, but it's at a comfortable level where I can overcome it and get out of the house and go. And quite honestly, one of the things that I've been saying with my counselor is that there was some time here recently where I was not in the mood to get out of the house. And I knew that if I didn't go, I would regret it because of how much I've enjoyed it. And so that was my motivation, was that I knew I would regret it. So I obviously ended up going, having a great time, glad that I went. And so that is part of the coping mechanism, is to understand that if I do miss a class, that I will feel guilty about it, number one, and I will also be upset that I didn't go and feel like I wish I would have gone. So anyway, that, I guess you could say that's making a plan, but it does lessen my anxiety. And so when it talks about here making a plan, it says that my emotional reaction can be greater, which is true. That's how my agoraphobia happened, where I just did not go outside of the house. And the more I stayed inside was then when I was diagnosed with agoraphobia. And now that I've found Pilates and I'm getting out, I still have agoraphobia. But this one thing around the Pilates and getting out and doing well and enjoying it has really helped with the agoraphobia. So next here on the list is try problem-focused coping. So confront your stressor directly and try to find the solution. And since driving your kids to school might cause you to worry because you're afraid you might arrive late to work, instead you may ask someone to take your kids to school. So for me, what I do, and so I'm in an area of the country that's highly populated and we have a lot of public transportation. And while I do enjoy taking the public transportation, because at times it is way, way easier and faster than if I were to drive, I do not really like it in a sense because of how many people are on the public transportation. And so for that reason, I typically, if I do go into the office, I go early in the morning to avoid all of that, knowing that's a trigger for me. But also too, I've started lately, like I have gone into work a few times and I have driven into work, and I've driven into work without a radio, which has been fantastic, which is odd because of how much I love music. But it just has been something that I've been doing, I don't know, over the last several months, and I just really enjoy the quiet, and it's helped me mentally prepare to get into work and feel comfortable doing so. It kind of helps with the anxiety. That's exactly what I'm doing here by problem-focused coping, is either one, going into work using public transportation, which my counselor would probably say that's avoiding, which it probably is. But the other thing that I've been doing is not listening to music while I've been driving, which has been really great. Try emotion-focused coping. When you cannot eliminate or avoid a trigger, focus on regulating your reaction to a stressor, which may help reduce the stressor's impact. For example, meditation can help reduce the stress, anxiety, and depression. My counselor and I just talked about this because there are times where this person that I work with mimics the past experiences that I've had that have caused my anxiety and depression. I do try to not participate in anything that this person is doing or avoid having interaction with her. But I did have an interaction with her a few months ago, I think now, and I was really afraid of standing up for myself, but I did, and it probably made our relationship worse. But I just try to interact with this person in a professional manner and try to limit how often I interact with this person. Additionally, I'm not working directly for this person, which has been extremely helpful. So it says communicate if someone is triggering you. A person triggering another person often does so unintentionally. And I'm not going to talk to this person about it. I'm not going to try and change them. This is something that I have to deal with. And honestly, this person would not give two shits about stopping to trigger. She basically just doesn't care about people, in my opinion. I just don't see the point in doing that. So this is not something that I would not talk to this person about it. Because I think, okay, so this next hour we're going to talk about is 5 lifestyle changes to help with managing anxiety and depression. Let's talk about the first one, which is prioritizing sleep. Lack of sleep can exacerbate mental health issues and vice versa. Adults should be getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night, and that includes on the weekends. If you're having trouble sleeping, take a hot shower or bath 2 hours before you have to go to bed. The drop in your core body temperature will get you out of the warm water, help stimulate melatonin release, which will then help you sleep. Stay active and go outside. So daily exercise alone can help you manage anxiety and depression. And we just kind of talked about that with my Pilates, and we'll go into that a little bit more later. Focus on good nutrition, which I have been doing lately as well. It's the reason I'm down a size. Focus on avoiding and limiting alcohol, which I typically don't drink as much as I used to when I was younger because the hangovers are not as fun as they used to be. And so I don't drink very often. In fact, I've got bottles of wine sitting downstairs that I'd like to drink, but I just, number one, I don't want the calories, and two, I don't want the hangover. So I have not had any. I brought them home with me when I was in my hometown. And yeah, I haven't had any since. Practice meditation. I don't do meditation, but I think the driving to work silently with no radio is maybe a form of that. And so I really do enjoy it. But it says here that meditation can help bring a sense of relaxation and a more tranquil mind, which may reduce stress and help calm anxiety. When you meditate, even for just a few minutes, you help clear your mind from daily stressors. This may be a key component for reducing symptoms of anxiety, depression, and other medical conditions. I will say that I did go into the office. Let's see, I went last week, or maybe just the week before now, I can't even remember. And then I went earlier, like I think it was June, early June. I went into the office. We had some required training that I had to take, and part of that was to show up in person, so I did. And I was really anxious about going in because we were actually not meeting in the office, and because of that, it basically changed up my routine, and I was worried about finding a place to park and getting to the location on time and so on. And so at one point, I had to sit down on my bed and do some breathing exercises because I was just really overwhelmed with the feeling of anxiety of going in. But in the end, everything went well because the school was out. So the traffic was really easy to get. I think it was that day. Yeah, it was really easy to get into the office, or not into the office, but into the location that we were going to, along with parking was simple because there was a parking lot right across the street. It actually worked out really well. So once I got there and I got settled, my anxiety reduced, but beforehand I was extremely anxious. Something like that was, I think, helped too, was I planned ahead about when I was going to leave because I knew what time I wanted to get there. And despite that planning, I still was super anxious, but by the time I got there, my anxiety was still high, but a little lower. And then even when I got there, I sat in my car for a little bit to kind of just breathe and try and reduce my anxiety before I walked in. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about mindfulness and how important it is. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I think this kind of falls in line with the not listening to music on my way into work. And here recently, I went back to my hometown because I was taking care of some family things, and also too I was there to see friends. And so I drove because I took my dogs with me, and it's a 16-hour trip to get from where I'm at to my family's hometown and that part of the country. And because of that, I split it up into 2 days. So I usually do about 7 or 8 hours on the first day, 8 or 9 hours on the second day, and I get in by the afternoon, hopefully, assuming everything goes correctly. So on my way there, most of the first day when I was driving, I didn't listen to music. So for the first 7 or 8 hours of the trip, I didn't listen to music. And I found it very calming because, number one, I could pay attention to what I was doing. And two, I was able to be aware of my surroundings. And I don't mean with respect to driving in the cars and everything, but I would see a really pretty house, or I would be like, oh, those trees are pretty, or look at those wildflowers and things like that. And it really helped. I found a lot of peace in that, and driving with no music and being able to enjoy my surroundings. And also, too, I have to, like I say, I'm on the East Coast, so I have to drive through the Appalachian Mountains, and I use that term loosely because they're not really tall compared to out west, but which I've lived out west. It's really pretty along there, and there's lots of pretty things to see. I just really enjoyed it. And I did listen to music at one point, and that was because I was going to go to a concert while I was back home, and I wanted to catch up on their music because I hadn't listened to their music in a long time. And so I wanted to catch up on their music. And so I did listen to music for a little while. But on my way back, though, again, 16 hours on the way home, and I listened to no music whatsoever during the 16 hours. And it was so freaking peaceful that I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more so than I did driving out. I'm actually going to be leaving here in a week to do it again because my family needs my help, and so I am going to be driving out there again, and I fully expect not to listen to music on my way there. But this article here talks about mindfulness exercises, and it's from the Mayo Clinic. And the first thing it says is, what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is a state of being mindful and aware of the present moment, which I really think driving with no music is that very same thing. It is a type of meditation in which you focus on your thoughts, feelings, body, and surroundings. For sure, surroundings. For me, anyway. You do this without judgment. There is only awareness of the moment as it is. Research has shown that mindfulness can support both mental and physical well-being. Almost anyone can benefit from the practice of mindfulness. So common myths about mindfulness is that you have to clear your mind, which I didn't have to. Because basically, I think what helped for me anyways is that I had to concentrate on something, which was the driving. But then I was also very aware of my surroundings. And so I think that was really what helped and was peaceful. One myth here says you have to sit still with your legs crossed for long periods. That's not true. And it takes too much time, and that's also not true. It says mindfulness can be as simple as taking a few deep breaths and being present in the moment. And I will say this is what we do in Pilates. The very first, 5 to 10 minutes of the class is doing breathing and just being really aware of your body and breathing in and what it does, and exhaling and interacting with your core and everything. And it's really great. It's fantastic to start out the workout. I really love it. It says, what are the benefits from mindfulness meditation? Mindfulness meditation has many benefits from people of all ages. These benefits are well supported by evidence-based studies and clinical trials. Research shows that practicing mindfulness can help with a variety of mental and physical health conditions, such as stress. Mindfulness can calm the nervous system. Anxiety. Mindfulness can ease anxiety by helping you stay focused and present, which I agree. I was focused on the driving. That was my present. And so it was really helpful because we all know that anxiety is thinking about the future, right? And so if you can bring your mind to be thinking about the present, then that's mindfulness, and hopefully will reduce that anxiety. It can help with pain. So mindfulness can help with long-lasting pain by changing how the brain processes pain signals. And I'll tell you this. So 2.5 years ago now almost, which is so shocking to even say, that I broke my ankle. I broke my ankle, my leg, and my foot all in the same fall. And I did a really nasty job on it. I had 6 fractures and it was a big mess. But of course it was painful because I had broken my leg, and I actually drove on it. I was about 45 minutes away from my home, and I drove on it because it's my right leg. So I had to be mindful about what was going on. And so what I was doing was I was breathing. I was doing breathing exercises to kind of help with the pain. They always say that sometimes you get adrenaline and that helps with the pain. And I truly think that's what was going on too. But it was real interesting to try and drive back home because I met a friend at home and then she took me to the hospital. But the funny thing is that I remember when I was driving that I had to put the brake on to slow down in certain areas on my way home, and man, holy crap, that I knew my foot was broken because when I moved my foot from the brake to the gas, that I could feel that my foot was floppy, which I know this is gross, so sorry. But, and so I had to get into a space in my mind where I was just really focused on the driving and trying not to think about the pain. And then I actually had to wait in the waiting room for a fucking hour while my ankle and leg and everything was throbbing, and eventually they got me in and they gave me some pain meds. But oh my gosh, that initial part was not great whatsoever. Okay, so, sorry, long story. So mindfulness can help manage depression by raising awareness of the negative thought patterns and reducing emotional reactions, which I can see that. I use it more for anxiety than depression, and it seems to help with respect to my anxiety. Sleep quality, insomnia, regular mindfulness practice can improve sleep by helping the mind and body relax at bedtime. Mindfulness can help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep, which I have for my entire life, or most of my life, I would say, as an adult, when I was getting to my late teens up until now, which I'm 50 now, so that just gives you 30-something years, that I've always known that sleep is important. And I do whatever I can to make sure that I get enough sleep. And I am notorious for taking naps. I've already had a nap today. It's now 5 o'clock in the evening, and I've already had a nap today, and I slept for a couple of hours, and it was great. I love naps. And I always have. I remember I used to go to college, and I was still living with my parents, and there was a community college in town, and so I went to the community college, and I think I had an early class, and then I would come home and nap in the mid-morning, maybe early afternoon time frame. And so I've always loved naps. I even did it when I was younger. I would go to swim practice because I was a swimmer for 10 years, a competitive swimmer for 10 years. Then when I was younger, like in the summer, I would go to practice in the morning, and then I would come home and fall asleep in my swimsuit on the couch. So I've always been very aware how important sleep is. And even when I was a shift worker, because I used to work rotating shifts, and when I did that, I was still very mindful about getting enough sleep. If I would work 11 o'clock to 7 in the morning, to 11 at night to 7 in the morning, I would not actually go to bed until about 10 or 11 in the morning, because then I would get all of my sleep in the late afternoon and then wake up to an alarm to go into the office. So I've always been very aware of how important sleep is. This isn't something that I have to do necessarily, but it's something to keep in mind if you're one of those people that tend to not sleep very much or think that you're going to survive on 5 hours or so. I just worry. My brother, I think, does that. He doesn't really get as much sleep as he should, but that's just my opinion. I'm not going to tell him what to do. All right, next here it says high blood pressure and also called hypertension. Mindfulness can help lower the blood pressure and easing stress. diabetes management. So mindfulness helps with lowering your cortisol, which raising your cortisol levels is what happens when you're extremely stressed or really anxious. A hormone that raises blood sugar levels, which some people are saying, and I guess this is true, that if you have high cortisol levels and high blood sugar levels, then that can lead to diabetes, which is what this is talking about. But also, too, that high cortisol levels can cause you to gain weight. It does not allow for your metabolism to work as it's supposed to. Or at least that's what I've heard. So asthma, which I do have, mindfulness can help manage asthma by lessening stress-related flare-ups. It can also help with symptoms. And I don't quite know if I believe that, because if I'm having an asthma attack, I don't know, maybe that is true. Because there are times where I feel like I'm having like my asthma maybe acting up, but if I maybe get a phone call, then I'm distracted from how that feels. And somebody even years ago asked me if asthma was all in my mind. And I think maybe to a point it could be, because if I see somebody having an asthma attack, like in a movie, it can cause me to have one. If I'm full on having an asthma attack, mindfulness isn't going to help. I'd have to go to the ER or at least do a breathing treatment. So I would say for mild asthma attacks, it could help, at least for me, anyways. And this article link continues to go on to, it talks about everyday benefits of mindfulness, better focus and attention, which is true for me, anyways. If my anxiety is lower, then I certainly am a better employee, and I can certainly focus better, and I don't have as many trouble or as many problems with keeping my attention and so on. So it definitely helps. Next here on the list is less stress and burnout. Short mindfulness moments taken during the day can help your body and mind release stress and reset, which I do agree. If it wasn't so stinking hot, I would try and get out and walk the dog and a couple of times during the day, since I'm working from home, and getting that mindfulness and can kind of help me reset. But I just haven't done that because it's so hot. I'm not a fan of summer at all. Hate summer. Next here is more awareness and control. Mindfulness makes you aware of your emotions, which can help you manage them better. And it says better mood and more energy. Mindfulness can support mental and emotional balance. It may help you feel more connected and present moment and less drained by negative thoughts. So let's talk about some mindfulness exercises. So paying attention. It's easy to get caught up in the rush of move of every day to where it feels like it's a blur, which I totally agree with that. Stop and catch your breath. Try and pause and experience what's around you. And I think that's why I really enjoy driving with no radio, because I really get to think about what's going on around me. The next one here is focusing on your breathing. It helps distract your mind from overwhelming and negative thoughts. Living in the moment, so breathe, look around you, be present in the moment. Check in with your body, turn off screens and phones, find a quiet place and notice how your body feels, which I have said this before and I haven't done it yet, but I really need to turn my phone off at night and do something like reading a book, which I really do love reading a book. I'm not good at reading, but I do really like reading a book and it being like a murder mystery or something like that. I like that, like the whodunit type books. And I haven't done that in a really long time, and I keep telling myself I'm going to do it, but I just haven't done it yet. Okay, so let's move on. The next thing we have here that we're going to talk about is okay. Now let's talk about self-care with respect to depression. And we talked about mindfulness for anxiety, and it possibly could work for depression. For me, I tend to use it more for anxiety, but so some of the things here we're going to be talking about are with respect to self-care for depression. So we'll just go quickly through this list here, but it says talk to somebody you trust. It might feel hard to talk about how you're feeling, but many people find that sharing their experiences can help them feel better. And I do. I always feel better after talking with a friend or my counselor. It's good for me to get that out and talk with somebody about it. So I really enjoy that. Try peer support. There are many places that you can have peer support and bring people together with shared experiences to support each other. And that was one of the things that we had talked about way, way back, where NAMI, or the National Alliance for Mental Illness, I think is what that stands for. They have a way where you can interact with other people, and they have times, days that you can meet with these people. So you are talking with people that have similar problems. And so that's NAMI. It's the National Alliance for Mental Illness. They have support groups that you can go and talk with people who may have a very similar problem or dealing with similar mental health issues that you are. The next here is finding a place to fit in. This says visit a recovery college, which recovery college offers courses about mental health and recovery in a supportive environment. The courses are often designed and delivered by people who are experiencing mental health problems. Try mindfulness, which we just talked about. Take care of yourself, which I know that's hard, especially for women that have children and a family. I do not have either, and so I can concentrate on myself in a very easy way. But a lot of times women find that they put themselves on the back burner and they put everybody else first. And just recently I was talking with somebody in my family about putting the oxygen mask on first, because in order for this person to take care of others, they need to take care of themselves first. And I think this person feels guilty about the fact that they are having trouble right now and they can't do that. But you have to take care of yourself first, because if you're not in good health, mental and physical, you're not going to be able to take care of somebody else. So definitely think about putting your oxygen mask on first so you can take care of others. Look after your physical health, so try to get good sleep, which we just talked about. Think about your diet, which I have been really doing that lately. I have been keeping track of what I've been eating every day for, let me see here, for 77 days. I have tracked everything that I have been eating, and I do believe that's the reason why I'm down a size, because I'm keeping track of everything. And I'm eating a higher-ish protein diet because I'm trying to build muscle, which is something I've never done before. So it's a learning experience. And then of course I'm going to Pilates 3 days a week, and I'm upping that to 4. And on top of that, I just bought an elliptical a few weeks ago, and I've been using that. And also too, I've been trying to do some weightlifting at home because I do have some free weights here at the house. So I definitely think that keeping track of food certainly helps. I just know that when I was eating just really crappy food all the stinking time, it felt good for the second that I was eating it, but then afterwards I felt just really blech, extremely blah, and not really having the energy. And now I do feel like I have more energy because I'm eating healthier, and it just overall it's just better to eat healthy, and both for the mind and body. So next here is try to do some physical activity, like I just said. I don't want to overwhelm myself, and the summer is like almost halfway over, and I really want to get in and do some swimming because there's a really awesome pool here. I just haven't had the time to go over there because my Pilates and work is taking up a lot of my time. Anyway, so next thing here says to try and avoid recreational drugs and alcohol, which we've already talked about that. I know it can be hard, especially for me anyways, the alcohol, might be was at one point difficult for me, and it's certainly not anymore. I just don't like having the hangover. If I drink, say on a Friday night, I waste away all of Saturday and maybe even Sunday if I have a hangover, and then poof, there goes my weekend, and then I'm back to work on Monday, and I don't really get a time to relax. But anyway, so next here it says take care of your hygiene, which I'll be the first to tell you that is really hard for me when I'm depressed. I don't brush my teeth. I don't take showers. I stay in the same clothing, so on and so forth. And it's really, matter of fact, I've lost 3 teeth now because of poor mouth hygiene and not brushing my teeth. I've always had a problem with my gums in a sense that I have periodontal disease. I've had it for years, and I was going to a periodontist 4 times a year way back when, and I haven't been able to find a periodontist that I've really liked since then. And even getting to the dentist has been very hard. But I did go to the dentist here a few weeks ago, and there was a recommendation to get rid of one of my teeth, and I did. I did that a few weeks ago, and it's the hardest thing for me because when I am depressed, the last thing I want to do is take a shower. The last thing I want to do is brush my teeth, and my teeth are now suffering. Gums are suffering because of it. Even when I was at my worst way back when, and I was off work for 3 months, I believe, if I remember right, 2 of those months I went without a shower. And if it wasn't for me getting out and doing the Pilates, I probably wouldn't be brushing my teeth or showering. But yeah, it is really hard for me to take care of myself with respect to hygiene when I'm depressed. But maybe that's one of the benefits of getting out of the house and doing Pilates, is because I'm actually showering. I sweat a lot when I am there, and so I'm sweating, and so I have to take a shower because of that. So anyway, I know it's hard, but I believe in you, and I think you can do it. You just have to do it, which I know is probably easier said than done. Spend time in nature, and yes, I would agree with that. Here, back in, I guess it was probably April, there was a park or a trail or something not too far from where my Pilates class is, and they had really beautiful trails that had flowers on every single trail. It was so beautiful, and I ended up going and having an amazing time. And then I looked into a garden that's not far from me and that I want to go to, but it's just so hot right now that I just would not enjoy it whatsoever. I don't even enjoy walking my dog because it's so freaking hot out. The other morning it was like 83 degrees when I walked her. I don't remember what time it was, like 7-ish, I think it was. Maybe closer to 8, I don't remember. But it was between 7 and 8. But I do agree, spending time in nature really is helpful. Try something new, and I do agree with this. This Pilates thing is brand new to me. To a point. I did do Pilates 20 years ago, but what I'm doing now is reformer Pilates, which is basically a machine, if you will, that you lay on and you use to do different Pilates exercises. And so I really enjoy it, to the point where I think I'd like to get one here at the house, but I just don't know yet. But anyway, yeah, so try something new, whatever that could be. And actually, I have developed a list of things that I want to do that I guess you could consider new, but also it gets me out of the house, which helps with the agoraphobia. Doing something creative, which is exactly another reason why I did this podcast, because it helps me be creative, and it gives me a reason to be busy on a weekend. And I wish I could get my computer to work so I could do a video again, but I just can't, and I can't afford a new laptop right now. So this is the way it's going to have to be, unfortunately. So I apologize for that. But anyway, it gives you examples here of ways that you can be creative. So it says painting or drawing, coloring, making a collage, taking photos, which I love photography. I actually owned a photography business years ago, and unfortunately my camera right now is broken, and I can't afford to send it in and get it fixed or even get a new camera. Anyway, singing and making music, which I tried to recently, as a couple of months ago, was going to join a choir. And of course my anxiety got to me and I ended up not going, but I think it would be fun. They meet every Sunday, and I wasn't really keen on that day in the week because I have to go to work the next morning. They meet from 7:30 to 9, and that's past my bedtime because I find sleep very important. So I may still do that, but for now, I'm enjoying just doing what I'm doing right now, which is the podcast and Pilates. Next year is dancing, creative writing, crafts. I will say I've been redoing my house for 2 years now because I'm just taking my sweet time. And I've really enjoyed it because it's helped keep me somewhat busy on the weekends. Like just today, I was putting a peel and stick tile in my kitchen. I have a really small area that has some tile on it, and I think it looks outdated, so I decided to put something cheap over it, and I will say it looks phenomenal. I ran out of tile, so I'm waiting for another delivery. But what I have there so far is really nice. And the reason I ran out of tiles is because I cannot measure to save my life. I made so many mistakes trying to measure things that I went through an entire box, and yeah, it just didn't go well. But anyway, it's been fun. I've really enjoyed it. I'm on the verge of finishing my cabinets, and yeah, it's been fun. I've really enjoyed it. So next year is cooking and baking. I love cooking. I like baking to a point because I have a major sweet tooth, but cooking I really enjoy. I love meal planning for the week, and I like food prepping because it helps keep me on a really good diet for the week, and I'm not suffering from not having something in the house and maybe wanting to order something in. Next here is writing a journal, which I don't write in a journal, but this podcast is very much like an audio journal or a vlog, if you will. And so I tend to use this as my way to journal and make a self-care box. So list your favorite books, helpful sayings and notes of encouragement, pictures and photos of you finding comforting, soft blankets, snacks and drinks you like, and something nice to smell. I love that idea. I honestly haven't done that, but I think that's a really good idea. Okay, so we're going to talk about exercise, and we've talked about this before in a previous episode, but I want to bring it up because that was really what sparked this whole episode was my going to Pilates and how much it's affected my life. So this is an article from the Mayo Clinic. And for me, like I'll say again, that I've been going to Pilates now for 2.5 months. And I don't know how many classes that is total, but I have noticed differences in my mental health and my physical health. So, for example, my physical health, one of the reasons I wanted to try Pilates is because, like I said earlier, I broke my ankle, and my ankle and just that region of my body is very weak. And I thought Pilates would be helpful with respect to that. And also, I just knew in general I needed to get back to a healthy weight or a healthy body. And so I wanted to try something new, just in general, because what I really would love to be able to do is run again. And maybe someday I will. But for now, I'm going to try and do Pilates, and it's been great. So not only has it helped with my ankles, but like I said earlier, I've gone down a size. I'm still overweight, but I've gone down a size. I had to buy a smaller pair of shorts because the other ones were just a little bit too big on me. And then also too, I've noticed I have some definition in my arms now. It's very subtle, but it's there. I can see it. Maybe people cannot. And then just overall, like I noticed the other day that I took my dog on a walk, and we went on a sort of longer walk, but it was really hot. That was the 83-degree day, or yeah, or 84, whatever that temperature was, mid 80s, and it was really hot, so we didn't go for really long. But I noticed that my back didn't bother me, and I think there's two reasons. One, I think the shorts that I had on, which were the smaller version, I wear biker shorts because I love biker shorts to work out in. And that helps sort of keep my belly in place and kind of gives it some stability. And because I carry all my weight in my belly, which can then hurt my back. And so my back wasn't hurting when I was walking the dog. And also to attribute that to the fact that I think I have some stomach muscles. Now you can't see them, but I can feel them. And having strong stomach muscles can help your back. So, that's just another thing that I've noticed as well. Overall, I cannot say enough good things about Pilates. If you're wanting to try and find something new that you've never done before, I say go and try Pilates. I'm a plus size woman. I don't know how much I weigh, but I know I was really up there in weight, and I also know that I had really big clothes. And don't worry if you are a plus size person to go into these classes, because you're not going to care. They're not going to care. They're actually going to help you if there are things that you need help with throughout the class because of your weight. So I say just go and try it. So it's a lot of fun. Okay, so anyway, we're talking about exercise. So it talks about here's how does exercise help depression and anxiety? It helps release feel-good endorphins, which is a natural brain chemical that can improve your sense of well-being. Taking your mind off the worries, which I will say that. I just recently told my counselor that going to class gives me a 1 hour vacation every day that I go, because it's the 1 hour a day that I'm not thinking about the anxiety, I'm not thinking about the depression, I'm thinking about what is currently happening in the class. Because like I said, we kind of do some mindfulness in the very beginning of class, but then the rest of the class are just various Pilates exercises. And for me, I focus on making sure I'm doing those exercises correctly. And for example, we do planks, and I have a love-hate relationship with planks. I love them with respect to how much they can help your core, but they're also not easy. And so we tend to do 30-second planks. And so what I will do is I'll get into a plank position and just close my eyes and think about what it is that I'm doing and making sure I get through that 30 seconds. And we typically do 3 or 4 rounds of planks. And so, yeah, it really helps take my mind off of whatever is bothering me for that 1 hour day. It's like a little vacation for my mind. Regular exercise has mental health and emotional benefits too. It can help gain confidence, which I do agree with that. I feel like I have gained confidence. I'm nowhere near where I want to be, but I certainly feel like I'm getting there with respect to exercise and my physical looks. Getting more social interaction, which exercise and physical activity may give you the chance to meet and socialize with others, which I agree. I could easily get a reformer here at the house, but I really love going to class and interacting with those people and the instructor, because the instructors are really good, and I just love everything about it. And I would maybe get a reformer here at the house for doing, maybe it snowed and I can't go to class or something, but otherwise I want to go to class. It's totally worth it. It helps you cope in a healthy way, so do something positive and manage depression and anxiety is healthy coping strategy. Trying to feel better by drinking alcohol and dwelling on how you feel and hoping depression or anxiety will go away on its own can lead to worsening symptoms. David talks about here in a structured exercise program, and I agree with that. I just recently created a structured exercise program for myself because I want to do my Pilates a certain amount of times a week. I want to do resistance training a certain amount of times during the week, and I also want to do my elliptical a certain amount of times during the week. And somebody once said to me here recently that it's better, especially if you're like lifting weights, to have an actual plan or program to work, and you're not just going into the gym, which I'm not going to a gym, but don't go into working out willy-nilly, actually have a plan in place. And I would agree with that. I think it gives you, especially I really like to check off the day when I've gotten it done, so that helps too. Okay, so that was it. So exercise is good, which I can tell you for a fact that is true. Exercise is fantastic. Okay, our last article is from Kaiser Permanente, and we're going to talk about hobbies to boost your health. And we already talked a little bit about that, but this is a little bit more in-depth article. And It talks about finding the right hobby. And I'm not going to go through all this. Get moving with healthy hobbies. So we just talked about exercise and how that helps. But he says maybe volunteer or join a sports league like volleyball, which I did that years ago. I wasn't even depressed then. But I played volleyball in middle school like forever ago. And in 2014, one of my friends that I met on the swim team that I was swimming for at that time, she asked me to join a volleyball team with her, and I did. It was over the summer, and it was so freaking fun. It was sand volleyball. It was so freaking fun. I loved it. I loved so much about it. But anyway, I could sit there and talk to you all day about how fun it was. It was great. It talks about maybe doing yoga, resistance band exercises, swimming laps, which, like I said, I want to get back into swimming. Go for a walk or join a walking or running club, which years ago I wanted to join a run club and I never did. And I kind of wish now that I did. But there is a hiking club here where I'm at, and maybe someday I'll get out and do a hike with them. But I still can't walk long distances right now, and so I wouldn't be able to do that. And here it says creative hobbies, which we did talk about, finding something creative. As an example, maybe learn a new language, write a short story, design a website, take a cooking class, maybe a ceramics class. Those are all seem like fun things to do. And then you build connections through shared hobbies. So loving music, maybe supporting the homeless or an animal shelter, needing to laugh, maybe join an improv group, which that would not something I would do. Maybe I should do it because it's something I haven't ever done before. Anyway, I have a friend of mine who goes to the local animal shelter and walks dogs. And I think that would be a lot of fun. I just haven't done it. But find the right hobby for you. And obviously, hobbies that you can do at home is stretching and breathing exercises, dancing to a few songs. We talked about cooking, starting a puzzle, drawing and coloring, reading or listening to an audiobook, caring for plants or maybe a small garden. So I hate gardening. I would not be good at that. For years, I told myself I liked it, and I just really didn't. Especially if there for a while I was for 11 years I lived on 2.5 acres, and I freaking loved that house so much. And I loved my job, I loved my house, I don't know why I ever left. Had a pool, it was fantastic, because the above ground pool was great. I kept telling myself that I liked to do gardening, and so I would plant bushes and flowers and stuff, and yeah, I do not. After doing that for 11 years, I was like, no more. So I'm now living in a townhouse. But anyway, so that sums it up. So I really want to thank you for joining us today. This is really fun to talk about ways to maybe try and help with anxiety and depression. I hope that you can get out and find something that you enjoy, whether it be a new hobby or maybe trying to exercise more. I will continue to share my weight loss journey as I have been trying to get into Pilates, which I absolutely love. And so I hope in some way this has helped motivate you, and maybe you want to go out and find something to do that will help you. So anyway, thank you for joining me. Hope you have a wonderful 4th of July weekend and you're able to get to see family and friends. And I will see you later this week when I check in on Wednesday. So we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. If today's episode of Real Stories, Real Struggles, and Real Hope resonated with you, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your engagement helps others find this space and feel less alone.